To the final week of NFL. Man, it went fast. Final week of NFL for GPP and daily fantasy. It's a bonus week. I did not actually think we were going to get, with a four-player slate and all the injuries, a big prize GPP tournament from DraftKings for the championship games. But alas, there is a $27 contest with a $250,000 first prize and a $4 contest with a $100,000 first prize. So all it takes is one to win. I do think it's a tough week to differentiate because there are four teams, limited players, and a bunch of injuries, even shrinking that player pool more. So more than in past weeks on here, we're going to take a little bit more risk and a little more chances, which means we could cash less and throw out our money. But it's the last week of the season and we got to go for it. So remember, GPP Master Strategy. You have to have a budget. If you can spend enough to do 20 lineups, that's my goal, 20 lineups this week, in the $27 tournament, do it. If you can't, do the $24 lineups, because if you have a big lineup, you'll win. And, if you split $100,000 with a few people or $250,000, that's okay too. So a couple notes on this week. One, you definitely have four of the greatest quarterbacks ever in the game, and maybe the four best championship game weekend quarterbacks as a group together ever left here. You have four teams that really were the top-ranked offenses, passing offenses on the season. The Patriots, Atlanta. Atlanta was 2 during the regular season. Atlanta was 3, the Patriots were 4, Pittsburgh was 5, and Green Bay was 7. So all four teams left were top 7 passing offenses, and Green Bay, Atlanta, and the Patriots are 1, 2, 5 so far in the playoffs. Atlanta and the Patriots were top 7 rushing offenses on the season, and of course, Pittsburgh is number 1 in the playoffs, and they only had Le'Veon Bell for some of the years, so they statistically climbed up to number 14. What's interesting is Green Bay. Green Bay has obviously a phenomenal passing offense, but they had a terrible rushing offense all season. Let's see. Not even top 20. And they are 31st against the pass on defense. So when you look at these four teams, clearly to me, there is the top tier, Patriots and Atlanta, statistically and how they performed, then Pittsburgh, and then Green Bay, which is even more miraculous because Green Bay is literally standing on Aaron Rodgers' shoulders and back. And what he is doing is incredible. Now he has to take it a step further because now he has more injuries, which we'll get to. Let's talk quickly about the over-unders. So both are high, 61 for the Green Bay Atlanta game. That is the highest NFL over-under in the history of the sport going into a game. 61, which means Vegas says it's going to be a complete shootout. Now, it may drop with the Green Bay injury situation, but even then, that's what they think. And the Patriots 50.5, certainly nothing to be shy away from. The other thing that jumps out at me here is Gronk. So the Patriots Le'Veon Bell or Antonio Brown or Julio Jones is Gronk. And when you look back in years that Gronk has not been here for the championship game, the Super Bowl, it has been the years the Patriots have fallen short. And I worry about that. I do worry that this is where they'll miss Gronk the most, right now, right here, the next game or the next 2 games, hopefully. Something to keep an eye on. They're missing their Julio Jones. They're missing their Antonio Brown. So let's talk about positions. And again, we're going to take some more risks than we have all season and kind of tweak our strategy a little bit because you want to try to win in the last week of GPP NFL, big money. Quarterback. So I'm going to play all 4 quarterbacks. Why not? They're all studs. I'm going to play Brady and Matt Ryan in 6 lineups each, and Big Ben and Aaron Rodgers in 4 lineups each for my 20 lineup. So a little bit heavy weighted to Brady and Ryan. Brady, because he's Tom Brady, because I've said all year, he's on a mission, and I'm not fading him until something goes awry, and he rarely has 2 bad games in a row. And last week wasn't a great game. It was not the Patriots' best game. So I expect a fired-up Brady against Pittsburgh this week. And Matt Ryan, just MVP, number 2 passing offense on the season, number 3 in the regular season, number 2 in the playoffs. against the 31st passing defense of Green Bay in a game with a total of 61. So how can you not have Matt Ryan? I mean, bottom line, how can you not have Matt Ryan? And then everybody else, Rodgers is expensive. He's their only shot, and he's going to throw the entire game. There's no running game. He's just going to have to throw in a shootout. It's just how it's going to be. So he should rack up a lot of statistics. He may throw some picks. We'll come back to that. But he's going to rack up a lot of statistics. And look, Big Ben is $5,800, way cheaper than the other quarterbacks. So you got to put him in I'm going to have him in 4 lineups, and I'm going to have him stacked with Brown. I'm going to have him stacked with Bell and Brown, and I'm going to have him stacked with a sleeper like Eli Rogers or James. Running backs. So look, Le'Veon Bell will be the chalk. He's expensive. Patriots are good against the run, and they're going to clearly game plan is to take him out of the game. So I will be using Le'Veon Bell in half of my lineups. And if you remember, I think 2 weeks ago against Miami, I said let's use some D'Angelo Williams. And that did not work out. He came in for like 3 plays at the end of the game. But this week, with this player pool so shrunk and all these injuries, you got to take a chance. And it might mean throwing money away and not cashing like we try to do every lineup in the past. But D'Angelo Williams is a stud. He has the potential to get out there and have 2 touchdowns, break a 40-yarder, have 100 yards. And there's a couple things going here. One, I do think the way the Patriots are going to play defense, you may see a little bit of him in a passing situation on the field with Bell. And 2, kind of secret weapon, the Steelers have, as you may know, the stomach bug. It's rampant. And Le'Veon hasn't caught it yet. So what if you get to game day and Le'Veon's sick and throwing up on the sidelines and D'Angelo becomes the starting back? He is a viable number 1 back at $3,000. So I'm going to put him in 2 lineups. That's it. But I'm going to have him. Look, when you now look at Atlanta, I loved Atlanta last week. I told you guys in this video, and we're going to kind of go in order. To me, this week, I think I'm going to go heavier Coleman because he's $4,800 versus $7,200 for Freeman. And I just think with Julio Jones hurt and Gabriel hurt, Coleman lines up as a wideout. And I think you're going to get extra snaps for him because of that this week than you have. Freeman usually gets more snaps. But look, you can't go wrong with either of them, and I'll have exposure to both of them. But a little bit more to Coleman based on that and the price point. Last week, everyone who watched this video knows I was like, you must have Dion Lewis in all your lineups. I've been saying that for 2 weeks heading into last week to all of our members. And I had Dion Lewis in 100% of my lineups last week. And I said fade Blount. I didn't have Blount in 1. And Dion was cheap, $3,800. And he returned the kickoff for a touchdown with his 6 points for that. And he ran for 1 and caught 1. And he was a monster. And this week, I actually think I'm going to do the other way around. I'm going to low down and try to differentiate myself and go with LeGarrette Blount because he had 18 touchdowns on the season. Now, LeGarrette's not going to – you can't pair him with Brady, okay, because if LeGarrette scores 3 touchdowns, Brady probably didn't throw for 3 touchdowns because LeGarrette runs it in from the 5. He's touchdown and yardage dependent. He's not going to go out and catch 8 passes like James White or like Dion Lewis. So I will be using LeGarrette when I don't use Brady. But I will be having much more exposure to Blount this week and very little to Lewis, actually. Some Lewis, but a little bit of White, but mostly Blount. And then, Ty Montgomery's interesting this week. Green Bay has no running game. He's been their running back. He had a huge week last week, which means he's going to be higher owned than he should be. But with all that wide receiver injuries, he may have to play wideout more than he plays running back, which opens up the door to maybe a Christine Michael, maybe a Rapolowski, whatever his name is. And again, like Blount, that guy could put up 15 points by scoring 2 touchdowns from the 2 or 3. So again, it's a flyer, but you got to differentiate yourself at the positionals. You're not going to differentiate yourself at quarterback or defense. So you're going to have to do it at running back, wide receiver, and tight end. So for me, Blount, Coleman, half Bell, some flyers on D'Angelo, and some flyers on one of the other Green Bay backs. That's how I'll be playing the running backs. Wide receiver, so look, this big 3, Brown, Jones, Nelson. I'm not touching Nelson. I'm fading him completely due to the injury status, even if he's dressed and even if he's active. Julio, risky, right? Has an incredible matchup against Green Bay's 31st pass defense. But he he's hurt. He's hurt. That turf toe has kept him out of games. So that's going to create him some opportunity at other less known wide receivers for Atlanta. I will have one stack with Ryan and Jones for sure. I'll certainly have one with Brown and Bell. But I'm going to focus on some other value plays at wide receiver, starting with my man Julian Edelman, who will catch 5 to 10 balls, hopefully a touchdown. He'll still be Brady's go-to. He's cheaper than those guys. And I think Brady will look Edelman's way a lot, like he always does, and every one of those receptions is a point on DraftKings. So the key is for Julian to get in the end zone. If he breaks a big play, it's a super bonus because you know he's going to have 5 to 10 receptions. Similarly, I kind of like Eli Rogers because I think the Patriots are going to stack to take Bell out of the game, and they're going to put someone help over the top to prevent a huge play to Antonio, which leaves them vulnerable in that kind of bend, don't break defense they play in the middle of the field, which means slot receivers, Eli Rogers, James, tight end, and maybe D'Angelo Williams. So I think Eli Rogers has a shot to catch a lot of balls over the middle in this game. And I think he's worth having in some lineups, and he's cheap at $3,400. On the Patriots front, I need you to come back Sunday morning and check on actives and inactives. Okay? Floyd, Amendola. Michael Floyd had a terrible game last week. He dropped the ball, he missed routes, and he could be inactive because that's how Belichick rolls. But if he's active and he's going to play, and if Hogan's banged up, he's still a huge talent in the red zone, and he could absolutely come out and have 2 touchdowns. And it's worth a flyer, and it's worth taking a look at. And if he doesn't play, similarly, I like Amendola for the same reason. A little less upside. And then lastly, Randall Cobb will get a ton of targets. He's the only healthy Green Bay true receiver. He'll be highly owned, but look, Rodgers has to throw all game, and he's going to have to look at Cobb could get 20 targets in this game. So if he does, he's going to catch a lot of balls. So I love Randall Cobb out of all those guys over there, unless Devontae Adams is really okay and really healthy. I do always love Devontae Adams, number 1 there, but it's going to come down to his health. So again, check back with us Sunday morning on GPP Master for injury updates. And then on the Atlanta front, you have Jones and Gabriel are both hurt. Jones and Gabriel are both hurt. So Robinson had a touchdown last week, has had a few during the season. If one of those guys come out and Ryan's throwing all over with a 61 over-under, both Hardy and Robinson are worth a flyer because, again, you got to take chances this week more than you would in the past. You have to take chances with crazier players. And I like Robinson if I'm going to take a flyer, and I will have him in a couple lineups. Stacked with Ryan. Tight end, Jared Cook's going to be like 80% owned after his week last week and all the injuries in Green Bay. I'll have him in one lineup with Rodgers, and I'm fading him. I'll then instead use Marty Bennett. I'll use James, as I said, Jesse James. I'll use Tololo from Atlanta, who gets targets, and differentiate and try to use that tight end to save some money and differentiate myself there from other players. We'll be using all 3 of those guys. And look, Richie Rodgers caught a touchdown last week. He will be much less owned than Cook. I'll have one lineup with Cook and Rodgers. That's it. And then defense, bottom line, we've said this all year. Go with the defenses to score touchdowns because when you get those points locked in, you're locked in. 7 points, no matter how many points are scored against that defense or how many they give up. And if you throw in a couple sacks, you're suddenly at 9 or 10 points. And Atlanta at $2,100, $1,900 of savings over the Patriots, who are the chalk and will be the chalk. Atlanta, 5 defensive touchdowns this season. 5. And with Rodgers throwing every down in a 61 total game, likely coming from behind, with injured players and no running game, there's a real good chance of an Atlanta defensive touchdown. Save the money. I'm going to have the Patriots in a couple lineups, but save the money. Good luck. All it takes is one win. It's been a great season for GPP Master. I hope you guys come back next year. We're going to be bigger. We're going to be better. We're going to add sports. But let's go split $250,000 this week. We finished the season with a Millionaire Maker winner, with a couple of $50,000 winners amongst our membership. We've given our members have won over $2 million this year, and we've all had a great year. And if you followed this video, you've done well, and if you followed our advice, so make sure you come back, join us again. We're going to get bigger and better, and we're going to help people win. And remember, one tournament win, and you change your life. That's all it takes. That's the beauty of the GPP.